Moving swiftly along-ish, I've got number 8, 21st Century Love Songs. Once I have a cup of tea, because this is probably this is where it gets a little bit ugly. You're all clapping your hands with glee there. Number 8, 21st Century Love Songs. This is a weird one. I've been asking you what your favourite albums are, and this one ranks really low. Now, you know, all this talk about the classic lineup and all the rest of it. The classic lineup only recorded 2 albums, and this was the second one. I thought it was all right, you know, song-wise, but the recording of it, fucking hell, what a night. Well, it was, again, I asked everyone to write songs. Nobody wrote any fucking songs, so it was up to me again. COVID happened. Just before COVID happened, I'd been arrested for ABH because I was a solo gig and we were playing somewhere just outside in Northern Ireland, and there was this loudmouth in the audience who was behaving like a cunt, and I was just like, you know, note his fucking face and wait until the set's finished. I finished the songs, went and got this guy. He wasn't up for a scrap, and he fell over and banged his head on a fire extinguisher. Straight into court, 3 years suspended sentence. So I couldn't fucking travel, and then COVID happened. Couldn't have been a worse fucking time to record an album. Well, it could have been, because by the time COVID was over and we were doing this album by the time things started approaching normality again, I still don't think things are normal after COVID, but obviously Danny wasn't very well. He was a skeleton, he had no teeth. It was a shock because I hadn't seen him for a long time, and you know, we're not the sort of band that keep in touch via Zoom. And it was a shock. Second shock was you know, we had to demo this album. Me and Rich did it again. We'll see a pattern as we continue now, but me and Rich tended to do the albums together, and then Danny and CJ would hopefully learn the songs. When it came into the studio, and I only have this from the producer, no one knew the songs. Danny came in, he didn't know anything. CJ didn't know the songs. We weren't even together during the recording of this album. That's how disjointed it was. So it sounds like an album to me, and as far as the reviews are concerned, it sounded like an album, it sounded like a band. It was anything but a band at this point. It was a fucking fragmented nightmare. The kind of thing that I don't even know if any of you have been through, but just things falling apart and you're trying your best to fucking pull them together, and you barely get through by the skin of your teeth. The reviews come out, whoa, this is a band, this is a fucking classic lineup. Fucking hell. Yeah, 21st Century Love Songs. Again, some great songs, but miserable time. But a really, to me, quite a strong album. That's why it features higher on the list. At number 7, Hutzpah. Now, for me, Hutzpah would have featured higher on this list had it been the album that I wanted to make. And I'll tell you for why. I wanted Hutzpah to be mental, like a real hodgepodge of ideas. That was my idea behind it all. And so the first song I wrote was Hutzpah, which became Hutzpah Junior. I'm going to try and explain this as best I can. We recorded all of the songs at a time where things were fucking awful for me. Just being forced to leave New York, come back, and we went straight to Denmark to record this with Jacob Hansen. We turned up at the studio, and the band that had been in there had trashed the place, so there wasn't even anywhere to sleep. So what we did, let's get drunk and trash it even more. We'll take the bits of debris and we'll make matchwood out of it. And we did. We destroyed the place. There was literally nowhere to sleep. Recorded the album. Rich obviously was like, I'm going to do my parts and then I'm going to fuck off. And I don't blame him. So I'm there. with Scott and CJ. Scott and CJ finish their parts first, and then they fuck off, and they spend every day on their bicycles going to the pub, leaving me to do the whole fucking album by myself once the guitars and the vocals had to go down. Yeah, pop back in to do backing vocals and stuff like that, but there was no band there when we were recording this. Whatever, it wouldn't be the first or the last time that I would have to do this. Not ideal, but I loved working with Jacob Hansen, so the whole process was enjoyable for me, and it got my mind off the fact that I was so homesick, so fucking homesick. We just had a little baby. Kicked out of New York, forced to stay somewhere in Britain, and my girlfriend and my baby were there, and I was in Denmark. Ugh, awful. Got worse, because by the time the album, and again, there's been periods of this thing where you all think it's a band. I've just been trying to keep this fucking thing together. So in my fucking wisdom, I said, well, okay, I'm going to make it democratic. We're all going to pick which songs go on the album. Why the fuck I did that, I do not know to this day. But we all picked the songs, and all my favourite songs, the ones that were going to make the body of the record, were voted off the album. And I went, okay, fuck me. And yeah, it ended up being all these songs I wasn't that keen on. And all my favourite songs went on to make what was called Hutzpah Junior. Now, if Hutzpah had been the songs I wanted, with Hutzpah Junior, which was supposed to be called Hutzpah, starting the album, and then Hutzpah, which is supposed to end the album, which they were supposed to have the same title. So there's two songs called Hutzpah. Vernix was supposed to be the centerpiece, this crazy song, and then there was all this stuff like Under the Waves that was supposed to take it this direction, that direction. Again, we ended up cobbling together what I think everybody thought was going to be a rock album. Not too cerebral, not pushing any envelopes anywhere. And it came out, and, you know, people didn't like it anyway because it sounded different. And I really did want to go for a different kind of sound, a different kind of approach. But it was just came out and it was confusing. This album, if it had been my kind of baby, it would have featured a little bit higher, but it didn't. And this is what we ended up with, Hutzpah. Number 6 on my list, counting down, the White Album, which is also called the WiLDHEARTS, but you lot called it the White Album. Same thing happened. I think I just saw another fucking orb go past there. Keep an eye, because this house that I live in is supposed to be haunted. I don't believe any of that fucking haunting business. I don't believe in ghosts. I think there's something going on. There's definitely some energy going on, and orbs are definitely a thing. What the fuck they mean? But I keep seeing them all over the place. Anyway, the White Album. So the White Album, the band have broken up at this point, and I'm in Spain with Ralph Jezard. We're messing about, and we're, you know, trying to come up with some songs. And in the meantime, we'll come up with Howlin' Willie Cunt, which we're doing because we can't really think of any other songs, and we can think of loads of filthy songs. So the White Album reminds me of Howlin' Willie Cunt. It doesn't remind anybody else of that, but it reminds me of it. It came to do it. Roped in Jace Edwards to produce it. He did a fucking great job, because he literally held my hand through the recording of all of this. He was there every step of the way. Started out as a band, really good. You know, we're all in a house in Ipswich. There's some ripper going on. It wasn't the Yorkshire Ripper, but another ripper was going on. And we had moved into this house in the area that this was going in. So, you know, we crashed a car one day. Me and Scott went to the off-licence, drove a car through a bunch of fucking trees and into another field, totaled the car, went to the police station, and as soon as we got in the police station, all the doors locked. And they figured, we've caught the Ripper. There must be two of them, because these guys don't look like the locals. And then we heard the doors unlock, and we realised that, you know, they can't be the killers. They look like killers, and killers never look like killers. Anyway, we recorded, not demos. We rehearsed the songs in this house. So far so good. All went great. We decided we were going to start recording the backing tracks there, and then we went to Tutbury Castle. Now, Tutbury Castle is the most haunted castle in Europe, according to the people that rented Tutbury Castle to us. But, you know, we recorded in a castle. Who doesn't want to record in a castle? The answer, no one. So yeah, we went to a castle. CG had lost his voice, so he couldn't sing any of the backing vocals. Scott went home to America, and Rich had finished his drums, and he went home, which Rich was, you know, fond of doing. Don't blame him. So I'm left holding the baby, putting all guitar parts on, and I'm doing all the backing vocals. And our manager at the time, Gav McCall, he also joined in, did some backing vocals. It's funny, it's one of those albums where people talk about classic lineups. I'm like, if you just fucking knew how much you're listening to that's my voice or my guitars, classic lineup. I know, you like your photos, you like bands that look cool, I get it. Well, the White Album came, we finished it. We got through the fucking ordeal that was the recording of this, because we were in a haunted castle, supposedly haunted. I loved it. I loved being there. We had loads of friends around. It was just a good time. There wasn't a lot of band activity or anything, but there was just tons of fun. I remember just having a great time and really, really enjoying the process. And then it came out. It was all self-financed. I financed the whole thing. It came out and it was on Round Records, and we didn't have a clue what we were doing. Never had a clue what we were doing, but we never had a clue what we were doing. It was, you know, you can't even listen to this album on Spotify, but I do like the songs. I'm really fond of a bunch of the songs on there. Yeah, the new Flesh is really good. Slaughtered Others. Sweetest Song was great. The Revolution Will Be Televised. Fantastic song. Destroy All Monsters. That's a great song. I like this album. We recorded the whole album with the whole thing supposed to be noisy. And the drums were really noisy. When it came to mix the album, Rich came back and got involved and changed the drum sound. So none of the rest really gelled with the drums. You know, it sounds the way it sounds, but I like the noisy version that was supposed to be a cross between Earth Versus and Endless Nameless. And it doesn't sound like that anymore. Would I go back and would I remix it? No. Fuck all of that. Never again. Never again. I don't think I've ever done it. So there, number 6, The WiLDHEARTS. Number 5, counting down the top 5, is Renaissance Men. Now, Renaissance Men was a fantastic comeback album. We'd been on tour. Was it Brit Rock Must Be Destroyed? It was Reef and Terrorvision and the WiLDHEARTS. We only got together to do a few gigs. We didn't even know if we were going to make it through the tour. 4 or 5 gigs in, and Danny is trying his best, bless him. He's fucking really on form, and he's inspiring us. The tour went from strength to strength. It started good, it got better, and by the end of it, we were selling more T-shirts. I heard from the T-shirt people, not just guessing, but we were selling more T-shirts than either of the other band. In some gigs, we were selling more than the two of them put together. That's how positive the vibe was. For another one, that way, I can't do this. Fucking, it's like a mirror, only not a mirror. I digress, as I have a want to do. We started recording Renaissance Men because we decided this band's really good. Let's go back in the studio and do another album. And so far, so good. Sounded great. They eventually started falling apart. I had a terrible time, which I won't go into now, but I will touch upon at some point if you push me on it. But it was pretty awful. Worst time of my life. But I lost my voice through the process of getting over this situation. When we came back in, the vibe was all different, and we scrabbled together, finished the album. I don't remember recording the whole album. It was that fragmented. Jim Pinder, who produced this, is a musician, a magician, and a musician. He's an incredible musician, but he's also a magician. because he took elements of the demos, elements of the stuff that we just recorded, and he glued them all together to make a cohesive end product that I still think, I'm amazed when I listen to it, how much of a band it sounds like. The reviews were uniformly excellent. We were getting 5 out of 5s again. People were talking about it's a comeback. And it felt like a comeback, even though I knew it was a hard album to record. It was an unpleasant album to record, but the end product is rejoiceful. God knows how he did it. God knows how we did it, but it felt like a band pulling together. It wasn't falling apart. I was being a little bit erratic, but still, coming up with the songs. It felt like a new start, and I thought, if they can get me through this, then we have got a band. We've got a band together here. I think the songs are great on this album. There's so many of my favourites. I think Dislocated is one of the most powerful and effective songs we ever did. The Fine Art of Deception is one of my favourite songs I ever wrote. Diagnosis will always be a live favourite. I didn't like Diagnosis when we started recording. I thought, this is one that's going to end up on the shit tip. Too long, just too meandering. Fuck me, how wrong can you be? I was absolutely full of shite. My Kind of Movie's great. I liked CJ's song, Little Flower. Emergency, I like that. My Side of the Bed was great. Pylo Erection. Again, we were just scrabbling together to make this album, and it sounds so cohesive. Bizarre. Renaissance Men coming in there at number 5.